Today's theme is how to be fair, and the reading is taken from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, and verses 38 to 42. Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said, 'Eye for eye and tooth for tooth.' But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." It's not fair. If you have got through life without using those words or without hearing them, you have not lived. From our youngest years, we experience things as unfair. In our selfishness, we want to have what other children have, and we don't want them to have what we have. As we get older, we feel that it's only fair that if others hit us, we hit them back. This is the ancient law of tit for tat, and it has Old Testament support. The law of Moses says, if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. That's Exodus 21 verse 24. Leviticus 24 verses 19 and 20 backs that up. Anyone who injures their neighbour is to be injured in the same manner. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The one who has inflicted injury must suffer the same injury. And Deuteronomy 9:21 says, "Show no pity for it is life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot." And it is rather bloodthirsty. But logically, does it not also sound fair? The one who has inflicted harm should receive the same. The threat of reciprocation may make a perpetrator think twice. It's proportionate. Vengeance is limited to no more than's been inflicted upon us. And yet, eye for eye could mean that we all end up blind. And tooth for tooth could mean we all end up sipping soup for the rest of our days. Jesus knew the Old Testament law. He knew that many people would see these teachings as only fair, and yet he spoke of a way that was at once more costly and better. You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. What, never? We might think of that saying, all that is needed for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. But Jesus is not asking his disciples to do nothing. He's asking us to do something that's risky, costly, countercultural. He's asking us to follow his ways so that evil people, and maybe ordinary people just like us, are surprised by love. And it isn't a way that is necessarily fair, but a way that is right. There are 4 things, I think, that Jesus is saying from this passage in Matthew's Gospel. Firstly, he is saying, take more than you have to. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Now, I am right-handed, so if I were to hit you on the right cheek, I would use the back of my right hand. Some of you are flinching as I did that, weren't you? In Jesus' day, perhaps also today, that mode of hitting someone was not just violence, it was an insult. It was and is evil. And the temptation is to hit back. But that only keeps the evil in circulation. And Jesus' answer is that we should turn the other cheek. Jesus is not saying that we should never defend ourselves if someone hits out at us. But he's talking about insults. If someone were to insult you, you might think, I'm not going to take that. And you launch a verbal defense, which maybe turns into an attack with a counter insult. I think Jesus is saying that we should take it and take more than we have to when someone insults us, when someone verbally attacks us. He's probably talking particularly about being insulted for our faith. In the Beatitudes at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "Blessed are you when people insult you because of me." When we turn the other cheek, we respond with grace rather than with law. We refuse to return like for like. We don't respond in the way people expect. We stop the evil from circulating, and that may turn some towards Jesus. So take more than you have to. Secondly, I think Jesus is saying, give more than you have to. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. It's said that in Jesus' day, even the poorest man would have 2 shirts or tunics, I guess one to wear whilst the other was being washed or mended. But he would only have 1 coat. It was permitted for a shirt to be taken as a pledge for a debt, but not for a cloak to be taken. Jesus is saying, give your coat as well, even though you don't have to. R.T. France, whose lectures I attended when training for ministry, says that this verse is not primarily about law courts, but about the Christian's radically unselfish attitude to rights and property. I wonder, how much do you regard what you have as yours? And how much do you regard it as belonging to the Lord? Even when it seems unjust for someone to take something from you, there's a principle of generosity that Jesus is teaching. Yes, don't allow yourself to be taken for a ride, but give more than you have to. Third thing I believe Jesus is saying is travel further than you have to, than you need to. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. And Jesus draws here an illustration from the occupied land that he inhabited. Soldiers could seize a passerby and force them to carry a load. Simon of Cyrene was such a person, forced to take the cross of Christ to Calvary. What a load to carry. In the UK, we're rarely forced to do anything that we don't want to do. Do we sometimes feel obliged and do so grudgingly? When someone asks for assistance that they don't need or deserve, or when they do, and our Christian conscience kicks in, telling us we should help, do we limit it to the bare minimum? When an employer tells you to do something, do you do that only? Or do you ask if there's anything else you can do? Like turning the other cheek, going the extra mile is a biblical phrase that's entered the English language, and it comes from Jesus. For whom is Jesus calling you to go the extra mile? And maybe surprise them with love. Travel further than you have to. And fourthly, I believe Jesus is saying here, trust more than you have to. Trust more than you have to. Give to the one who asks you. Do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. And this can be very challenging. We are very possessive over what we own. If you ask to borrow my car, I will probably say no. But I might offer myself to drive the car for you. Sometimes I have loaned things to people and not got them back, and probably forgotten who I loaned them to. Giving away may be better if we can, because there's no expectation of getting back. We're not holding people obliged to us. Deuteronomy 15 here gives us some wise and compassionate words. If anyone is poor among your fellow Israelites, perhaps among us we might say, in any of the towns of the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted towards them. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend them whatever they need. Jesus encourages his followers to be generous rather than begrudging. And maybe we will sometimes get taken in, but isn't it better sometimes to take the risk and to surprise others with love than never to surprise anyone? Trust more than you have to. So not eye for eye or tooth for tooth, but turn the other cheek. Give over your coat as well. Go the extra mile. Do not turn away from the one who asks. This is not fair, really, is it? But this is more than fair. This is what Jesus did in life. This is what he did in death. He trusted people to get it right, though his disciples often made mistakes. And he trusted them again and again, just as he trusts us, even though we let him down. This is more than fair. And Jesus went further than he had to. Never did he settle for the bare minimum. It was not just sympathy he offered, but healing, forgiveness, life. Not just understanding did he offer, but yes, forgiveness. This is more than fair. Jesus took more than he had to. He suffered insults, death threats, false accusations, arrest, a rigged trial. And it just wasn't fair. And he did that for us. Jesus gave more than he had to. His life on a cross. His death for our lives. This is just not fair. It is more than fair. And that's how God is. God is more than fair. He is slow to anger. He is abounding in love for us. He's patient with us, not wanting anyone to die eternally, but everyone to admit to our sins and come to Jesus for forgiveness and the gift of life evermore. And this great God asks us to do no more than he has done himself. He asks us to trust more, travel further, give more, take more than we have to. He asks us to be more than fair.